May I say something to you to give you a true knowledge of yourself and life? Man in the full knowledge of himself is a superb and supreme creature of creation. When man becomes possessor over the knowledge of himself, he becomes master of his environment.
Many of us watched Nickelodeon growing up. They had a pretty fun and engaging discography of shows to watch, and each one was unique. The shining star above all of them was of course SpongeBob, a show that left such a cultural imprint that the ripples it made will be with us for many years. The era in which we were watching these shows is commonly remembered as happy and bright by many of today's teens, but among them was one that seemed very mature, weirdly adult even. That show was Avatar, The Last Airbender. A show so unique and so brimming with personality and vision that it overtook an entire generation and submerged them in a land of magical power, mystery, love, hatred, revenge, and hope. It was an absolute smash hit. The impact it made has not been forgotten, and to this day it haunts our imaginations and memories. But why is Avatar so good? How did it capture the imagination of an entire generation? And how did this cultural touchstone help us understand our own place in the world as human beings? This is how Avatar, The Last Airbender is a masterpiece. The first episode of the show opens in the Antarctic tundra. Our protagonist, Aang, is frozen in an iceberg. He is discovered by two tribe members who stumble across Aang while fishing for their village. The girl is introduced as Katara, the last waterbender in her tribe, and therefore the last one in the whole South Pole. The boy with her is her brother, Sokka. They break Aang out of the ice and later learn that he froze himself because he was trapped in a storm and couldn't find his way out. This reveals a critical trend in the storyline of the show. Aang is a mix of stand and fight or drop everything and run. He waxes and wanes between moments of confidence and moments of self-doubt. But when he stands and fights, he often finds himself isolated and alone because he loses control over himself and his power. This shakes his self-belief, and as a result, he retreats into loneliness. But when he flees, it's because he wants to preserve what he has and protect everyone else. For him, saving the most important people in his life means to run. To preserve his family, he has to flee. More on that later. This constant flow between fight and flight correlate perfectly to a hero's journey. The hero is called to action, he's given supernatural aid, he meets his guardians or begins putting his family together, but to reach his objective, he must enter the unknown. Entering the unknown triggers the beginnings of his character development and starts the process of his transformation. In this state of unknown, he meets his mentor, who guides him and points him in the right direction. As he moves towards his goal, he must overcome an ever-increasing series of challenges and temptations. This eventually culminates in a revelation, which brings about his ultimate character transformation. In this changing state, the hero atones for their sins and wrongdoings and integrates the bad and good parts of themselves into one being. Upon mastering themselves, the hero returns to the original objective and completes it. This sequence is, in short, the skeleton of every good story. The adventure is punctuated by tragedy and lessons learned, but in the end, every part of the adventure serves its purpose. Avatar deals with very deep and mature themes for a show supposedly created for a young audience. I mean, Aang's entire family and culture were wiped out in a genocide. The entire world is under threat of conquest by an evil emperor, and Aang is not properly trained or wise enough yet to defeat the emperor, who has sent his own son to hunt down and kill him. And yet, there are quiet moments between characters, beautiful and peaceful moments, bits of comic relief, revelations, and love. It is all wrapped together in a way that makes what would appear on paper to be an impossible task seem more like a challenge to overcome. Aang's journey is centered around self-mastery. For Aang to even have a shot of defeating the Emperor, known as Fire Lord Ozai, he must master the four elements of the world. These are water, earth, air, and fire respectively. Aang was born into a tribe of airbenders, so of course that's what he knows best. But each of the other three elements must be learned separately, from scratch. Mastery of each element also requires a different way of thinking. Air is nimble and swift. Water demands flow, technique, and cooperation. Earthbending can only be exercised when the bender has a strong state of mind that's instantiated in certainty of will in one's actions. And fire? Fire requires mastery of emotion. It demands cold discipline and self-control. Aang meets several mentors. Each one teaches him both how to think differently and how to master a new part of his psyche. He is constantly forced to humble himself by integrating new skills that test his self-belief and sense of virtue.
Because God is tribal. God takes sides. No man in the sky intervened when I was a boy to deliver me from Daddy's fists and abominations. I figured out way back. If God is all-powerful, he cannot be all good. And if he is all good, then he cannot be all-powerful.
This quote is absolutely true. Either one is all-powerful or is all-good. They cannot both be true. For Aang to become all-powerful, he must enter his avatar state. But when he does this, he hurts other people and himself. When he chooses not to be all-powerful, he cannot defeat his enemy and overcome the necessary challenges. The price of power is losing innocent virtue. But the price of keeping innocent virtue is an ability to grow from conquering new challenges. For Aang to truly understand his power and exercise absolute self-control, he must confront the fact that he must strike a balance between all-powerful and being truly good. This is what he does at the end of the series. Instead of killing Fire Lord Ozai, which is what everyone thought was the only option for defeating the Fire Nation and saving the world, Aang does something nobody thought possible. He takes Ozai's power from him. Forever. Taking Ozai's power makes him truly human. It strips him of any dignifying roots which he could use to tether his false beliefs about his own destiny to. In other words, Ozai thought his destiny was to conquer the world through force and fire, but by taking his naturally given firebending powers, he has no means to an end, meaning that as a result, he is forced to believe that, with time, a human is what tamed him. So a human is in reality what he is. And you could say that this is a lofty conclusion, and maybe it is, but there is plenty of evidence presented throughout the series that suggests that Ozai is more inhuman than he was human. The branding and subsequent exile of his own son, the murder of his own wife, killing his own father, and, of course, his manic obsession with destroying his enemies and ruling the world. He is represented as the fundamental axis of evil in the show, because who he is lay at the extremes of what losing your humanity is. To be redeemed and to confront his own humanity, he has to be stripped of the one thing that self-justified his conviction that he was more than human, his firebending. A big part of the series is this idea of revenge. What's funny is that actually every single character in the show has reason for revenge. Sokka and Katara's mother was killed by the Fire Nation. Aang's whole people were murdered by them too. Zuko wants vengeance so he can prove himself to his father. And Toph wants vengeance over her parents for keeping her held up inside her whole life. The list of characters and their desire for revenge goes on and on.
The monks used to say that revenge is like a two-headed rat viper. While you watch your enemy go down, you're being poisoned yourself.
But the truth is, the only way to assure peace is to cease revenge and to end vengeance. Otherwise, there will be this endless cycle that will never end. This is satirically pointed out in episode 11, which is cleverly called the Great Divide. Aang must lead two enemy tribes through a canyon, even as the two tribes try to hurt and undermine each other. Aang ends up rectifying the tribal dispute, but the whole episode meticulously breaks down the idea of revenge and explains it through storytelling. As a kid, I had no idea what the hell was going on beneath the surface of the story, but I think that something beneath the episode buried within me an understanding of the deeper lesson that it was trying to teach me. Throughout the series, each character is shown to be on a quest for redemption. Much of the story has the idea of redeeming oneself at its center. Each character is flawed, even scarred, literally, but not permanently unable to heal spiritually. The 3 seasons of the show are broken down into the 3 elements that Aang has to learn. In each season, the characters attempt to redeem themselves along the lines of each element. The waterbenders are redeeming themselves in season 1, the earthbenders in 2, and the fire in 3. Meanwhile, Aang's entire journey of redemption is spread across the 3 seasons, eventually culminating in his ultimate redemption and victory on the last episode of the show. It seems to me that this is what the show wants you to do too. It wants you to seek an adventure to master yourself and become who you're meant to be. And it even proves you can do it with the story that it tells you. Indeed, the overarching narrative is built out of lessons. Each episode teaches the characters a lesson, and each lesson brings the characters one step closer to achieving their ultimate goal. The show is trying to communicate that you can go on the same journey too. Not literally, but in terms of the ups and downs and the lessons you learn along the way. It's telling you to heed your call to adventure and to go after your goal, your dream in life. Yes, you'll fail a lot, and yes, parts of it will suck, and yes, it will be the hardest thing you've ever done, but it'll also be the most important, most rewarding thing you've ever done. You just have to go out and do it. So then how is this message verified? How does the show you how you can successfully follow your dreams and achieve your goals? It teaches you that to do these things, you have to master yourself. If you do this, then maybe you can create a loving family. If you can do that, then maybe you can restore balance to the world. Because we know intrinsically that balance between all things is what maintains peace. Aang is a microcosm between the four powers of the world: earth, water, air, and fire. Each element is represented in the form of a nation, and the mentality required for mastering the element is represented in the mentality of the people within each nation. So, in order to defeat the evil of the world, Aang has to master himself. If he masters himself, then he becomes the natural master of his environment. The Christians believe that if you are able to embody Jesus, you'll have a spot in heaven, since, theoretically, your soul will have transcended the flaws of your own humanity. And that's literally what the Avatar is. By its very definition, it is a manifestation of a deity in bodily form on Earth, an incarnate teacher. And that's exactly right, because as the show tells us, the soul of each Avatar is the spiritual incarnation of every previous Avatar. So then how and why did the series grip our imaginations so tightly? Well, it's because the whole point of it, the entire significance of the story and the complete meaning of the adventure hinges on you, the individual. If you, as an individual, are able to master yourself, you will have the ability to do anything. If you integrate yourself, if you master the darkness and the light within you, you might just be able to peek into the transcendent reality of the world. And maybe, just maybe, if you are called forth, you'll have the power to save it too. And as always, thank you for watching.